Welcome to Out of Home Insider, the first podcast made just for media and marketing executives about how to create alchemy in the real world, blending marketing art and marketing science to create brand experiences that drive impact you can measure. My name is Tim Rowe, and for the past 3 years, I've been interviewing industry experts for their unique insight on this topic. And today's recap is of episode 98 with Brooke Ermogenis, creator of DOOH.io, the first online learning platform dedicated to educating on all things digital out of home and programmatic digital out of home specifically. I'm just going to get this out of the way right now. The episode with Brooke is required listening if you have any interest in a long career in out of home. In this episode, I'm going to do my best to set a table for that conversation, which is linked in the show notes. Really encourage you to go check that out after this. First and foremost, what is programmatic digital out of home? That's where we started the conversation. Part of the problem with programmatic digital out of home is the name itself. Out of home is the only category that defines itself by what it isn't, making it incredibly broad, as we well know. And programmatic is a way of trading, thus making programmatic digital out of home a noun and a verb at the same time. It's both a thing, classification, a category, and a way of doing something, which makes it inherently muddy to begin with. So let's just think of programmatic going forward in this episode as a means of transacting. Let me give you an example. You can still go down the road to Walmart to buy socks and pay cash for them, or you can have them automatically delivered to your house every 6 months on a subscription with Amazon. One is the traditional way of buying, and the other is programmatic. There are advantages to both ways of buying, so it's important to understand the pros and cons of each. And according to Brooke, 95% of the revenue coming from programmatic buying is coming from non-traditional buyers. That is, brands who have never bought any sort of out of home before. That makes it particularly challenging because digital out of home is not like the other forms of media that they're already buying programmatically and have been for a decade and a half. Brooke and I talk specifically about the flaws in the impression buying model, and we discuss per play buying, something that you've heard me talk about before on the show. The education gap, though, isn't something that's going to be overcome in just one sitting. That goes for both sides of the equation, buy and sell side. For buyers, think about buying digital out of home via programmatic means as a whole new medium. How would you approach a new medium itself? You'd likely start by trying to recreate the same types of campaigns you've done before. Try out different platforms to find which one you like best and offers you the greatest advantage with the greatest ease of use. And after you get comfortable with seeing how what you've done traditionally work in this new environment, you're going to start to develop new things to test. Consider how you can use the tools to choose inventory, and pretty quickly you're going to be finding that your methodology is starting to evolve and include the new things that you're learning, which will help you to reimagine or rekindle old ideas too. For sellers, it'd be good to go back and research the advent of display advertising on the internet in the mid-90s. When the first display ads were run on the internet, the website publishers were literally printing out server logs to show advertisers when the pixel of the actual ad being delivered fired on a web browser. And for the most part, that's still true for digital out of home. Media owners are providing multi-page reports from a computer showing the date timestamp of when the ad played on the respective billboard. It's fine and all, but I'm sure we can do better. I know we can do better. It's 2023. We're delivering proof of performance for digital out of home the same way that the internet was delivering their POP almost 30 years ago. That's 3 decades. Play logs are table stakes for a direct buy, but programmatic could be a step in the right direction of the way things ought to be. I'm going to use the word programmatic now to mean the actual delivery of the ads to the screens, right? Programmatic is a way of trading. It's a way of transacting. And part of that transaction is getting the thing you paid for. Here I'm talking about getting the ad to the screen. So think about delivery of the ad when I'm saying programmatic here. Why not solve for, is my ad playing, by delivering your digital campaigns programmatically? It's an automatic step up from play logs to the pretty dashboard of your preferred demand side platform. Insights into delivery, more control over the same inventory you're typically buying traditionally. If your ad isn't playing, you're not paying for it. So when a screen goes down, a billboard goes out, you'll likely know at the same time or maybe even before the media owner because you'll see that your ads are not delivering. So think about this in a timeline sense. We just agreed that proof of performance for digital out of home is in the mid-90s of the internet. Despite that, we've got this new way of buying and delivering called programmatic, which may conceptually date back to the mid-90s, but wasn't really adopted at scale until you had Facebook and Google ads come online. So 2007, 2008, meaning that marketers have now been buying programmatically for 15 years or so. So you've got a format that's operating in the 90s, wanting to transact like it's in 2023. With marketers who are expecting it to work like it's 2023 and not used to what things were like in the mid-90s. So what's the worst that could happen? Mass confusion? That was a little bit of a rant, but it's important. This may be the second most important episode on programmatic digital out of home. So I want to make sure we hit everything that's coming to mind. Okay, so how do we start really adding jet fuel to the programmatic equation? I think that it's by creating a feedback loop, and that's something that Brooke and I discuss on the episode. If you're a buyer, be testing. Be interviewing DSPs with the intention of committing to one and learning it and providing meaningful feedback because you have a great relationship. I think there's an unrealistic expectation that everything should just be done in turnkey. The way that things get to a done or semi-done / finished, point is through active feedback loops. We've got to get involved as buyers in giving feedback to the DSPs. We've got to get brands involved. We've got to stop being gatekeepers, and we've got to start creating more feedback. I still see a lot of stuff being built off of assumptions instead of insights, and that's fine when you're starting out, but that's the purpose of feedback loops so that we can get better. If you're a media owner, Brooke says to think of supply-side platforms, SSPs, like stores. I love this. I'm adding this part here. So if you, as a media owner, were a brand trying to break into retail, you'd want to be on as many store shelves as possible. So it may be a pain in the ass, but if you have digital inventory or you plan on adding digital inventory, you have to become a master of the SSPs, the same way that D2C brands have to learn Shopify, have to learn Amazon, have to learn Walmart, all of these platforms. SSPs are your store windows. It makes you available to an agency in Finland who doesn't know anything about you or your network because you reach 35 to 42-year-old moms. If you're still thinking about SSPs as competitors that you need to choose between, you are behind in the game. This was another really important concept that stood out to me, and that is that programmatic digital out of home is not remnant advertising. Though remnant space can sometimes be bought programmatically, we've got to stop treating programmatic as something that is of lesser value. It's not. Its value comes from its utility, and it's as useful as you want it to be or not. One of the most common questions about programmatic buying is, can I go see my ad? Or sometimes you get it after the fact, and it's more like, I didn't see my ad, and this stuff doesn't work. Hopefully you're addressing this question up front. We're talking about programmatic as a way of buying, right? Well, the question to answer to determine if programmatic is right for you is, how often do you want to see your ad? If the answer is, whenever I go there, I want to see it playing, then you should definitely not be buying programmatically. However, if your answer is more like, well, I'm trying to reach business professionals who ride their bike to work in New York City in the morning, and on days it's raining, I know they take public transit, so I'd like to reach them there whenever it rains. If your answer sounds more like that, then programmatic may be exactly what you're looking for. So here's the short list of takeaways from the conversation about programmatic with Brooke, which is linked in the show notes, along with her online academy, an article about display advertising in the 90s, the first display ad, and a couple of other things. Here are the key takeaways from the conversation with Brooke. Programmatic is a way to buy and deliver advertising. That's what programmatic is. It's a way to buy and deliver advertising on digital formats, okay? Not all digital space is available to buy programmatically. Okay, just because it's digital doesn't mean you can buy it programmatically. If you are a media owner, supply-side platforms, SSPs, are your store windows. So get your products in as many as possible if you want to make more money. Programmatic digital out of home isn't remnant space, but remnant can sometimes be bought programmatically. And I want to leave you off with this story about Google Ads. In October of 2004, Google Ads launched with a pay per impression model, and it only served ads on the right-hand side of the search results. Pay per impression means that your ad gets served one time to one person for one search result, right? So, and these were on the right-hand side, so nothing at the top of the page. So impression, in this case, equals play in an out-of-home context, right? One impression, one play here. Before Google Ads launched the auction model, ads had been sold primarily via hand-to-hand combat, boots on the ground, salespeople. In fact, the whole auction thing had started out as a side project by an engineer. When they first tested, they found that the rates yielded up to 60% more. To answer why is kind of simple when you lay it out, and it's because they created a marketplace with buyers and sellers, and that established market efficiency. They were able to find the highest possible price in every instance, therefore, thus by maximizing revenue. In Google's first year with the ad product, they did $70 million. In 2022, Google did $69 billion in revenue from their ad product. Google still has salespeople. Programmatic didn't replace salespeople. Rather, it cut out the bottom performers and made the top performers that much more valuable. The top performers are able to focus on the consultative and advisory type relationships with huge mega clients down to small agencies. And that's how you go from 70 million to almost 70 billion in less than 20 years. We talked a lot about timelines today, a lot about the history of things. So I encourage you to take a deeper dive into the early days of online advertising. Become romantically familiar with its stories and its folk heroes, because as an industry, this is our very same moment in time. Live hungry, stay full. I'll see you next time.